Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track by an act named Booker Brooks titled Nostalgia. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen on SoundCloud. This track is due for release soon as I understand it, if not already by the time this comes out, so we're going to listen through it from start till finish. And we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Very loud. I don't mind that though, it's nice to have the tape reel thing going.
Broken dreams, don't know what they really mean. I've seen it all, every possibility. Just never became easy, knowing there will be a change, and that I'll wake up to the day where everyone I love's passed away.
Wake up to the day where everyone's passed away. Just before I go any further, because I know we're getting into a bigger part, I just want to sort of give a shout out to how tight and smooth the transitions between the various sections are, the layering of the instruments, bringing in the bass, obviously continuing the piano, the vocals coming in really nice and smoothly in that mid-high range there, or that mid-range, and it's just a wonderful combination of really soft textures at the moment. Almost balladesque. Interesting extensions there in the chords. A little bit of vocal modulation.
Cherishing every little memory of family. Challenges I can't believe I beat. Never became easy, knowing there will be a change, and that I'll wake up to the day where everyone I love's passed away.
Faded and gone. And we don't resolve that melody there as almost if we're trying to suggest that we're not even sure where this train we're on is headed, We know what we've had, but we don't know where we're going to be. And it's that focus on the past there through the reflection and retrospection there. The description for the song says it's recorded through tape machines and made to sound as dusty and grainy as a concept, and I would wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that it does sound very authentic to old-timey kind of recordings, and does evoke a nostalgia for what happened previously, like you are watching your memories back in the day. I think production value like that is actually very, very smart, because it makes it seem like more than just a well-written song and a well-performed song. It's a well-produced song. And you've got the combination of those really intrinsically pleasurable elements there coming together for a really authentic experience. I love the drums coming in and out as well. 16th note grooves.
Always looking back, who I used to be. Fondest memories, are they real or not? I'm always filtering the pain, because I failed to watch. Even the
And big crescendo there. An instrumental section, I suppose, there. Kind of classy to not have vocals here, to just be able to appreciate the accompaniment. Oh, -7 turn.
Finally, I can just lie down and sleep now. I need my peace and a little time to grieve.
What I want to give a shout out to as well is the fact that we know to take away the low end to kind of allow things to flow, like with the right hand of the piano or with the vocals in that similar range there. It's as if we're drifting through our own memories, if that makes sense, and I think that's a really lovely touch. A shout out again, I know I mentioned the drums whilst the song was playing, but just I love how much they're pocketing. They know not to overplay, obviously, the boundaries. There's a really kind of moderate 16th note groove throughout the chorus sections and stuff, but it's so supportive of everything else.
Never became easy, visiting graves, and then I stayed asleep one day Somebody found that I'd passed away. My memory I know will fade and be gone. I won't even have nostalgia.
Oh, and that's the end of the tape machine. That's the end of the projector, the little reel thing, the old school movie projectors. You know what I'm talking about. Let's get to the conclusion though, because I got a lot of really positive stuff to say about this. I think it was really well done. Because this is my conclusion of my review of this track from Booker Brooks titled Nostalgia. They're actually from Ototahi, which as I understand is Canterbury, as I understand that is the translation for that. So they're a local, and it's great to review Kiwi musicians. I don't get to review a lot of New Zealand music, but when I do, it's a pleasure, because it's great to see the talent that comes out of the place where I come from. You know, it's nice to have that. And I think that what I really appreciate about the song is, well, for one, the story. I think that the story was well told there. It's something that not a lot of people really talk about in a way that's as eloquent or as easy to sort of digest as this. I think that there's a real kind of temptation when you're writing philosophical, not necessarily even philosophical stuff, but just writing about higher concepts, right? Such as your own kind of existence in the world. You won't even, like, he mentioned how he wouldn't even have nostalgia in the end after he passed away, you know? I think that's a really telling line. You won't have anything, it'll just be gone. All these conflicting feelings we have whilst we exist are just, it's as if they never happened. I think that there's a real kind of temptation to become a little bit too obtuse with it, a little bit too over the top with the way that you express yourself in these situations, to kind of almost make it sound a little bit pretentious, and we didn't have that here. I think that we told the story that we wanted to in a way where it not only examined our own beliefs about our own place in the world, our own memories of things that came before us, but we also realized that we'd become a memory too, and ideally one that will be remembered, but there's also the possibility that we wouldn't have anything, and that's just life. That's just the way we live, you know? And so I think that's a really classy way of telling a story. It's obviously not a happy sort of joy story, but music doesn't need to be happy in order to be good. And I like the fact that while the topic was kind of depressing, if we're honest, it didn't stray too far into the direction of being morbid. And the music, the accompaniment behind it, as well as the vocal style, supported that well, I think. The vocals from Booker Brooks were good. He was really comfortable with his chest voice, his vocal technique was solid. We didn't have a lot of wide vibrato or bits of ornamentation there. I think a lot of the power of it came not only from his solo voice as if he was alone by himself, but also on the hooks, with vocals coming on the other side, such as the thoughts swirling around his head. And they would be like modulated or have a different effects on them to kind of make them sound a little bit different or fuzzy or something like that. And that different texture, that different timbre there allows for it to be more easily placed by the listener. You know, we're not kind of trying to discern, oh, is that the same voice, is it a different one? It's clearly a different idea that we're stacking on top of the main one as a harmony, but the different components are distinct. So I think that that's well done, the vocal layering there. I like that we did have him by himself though, because that is reflective of the fact that the song is about sort of self-reflection, I suppose. But then I suppose, you know, you just needed that bit of extra oomph in the choruses to kind of give the vocals a bit more life and a bit more size, especially with everything else coming in. For the most part, outside of the vocals, which were well done, I did like the melodies there. I liked the unison with the piano parts, for example, when they came in. I think that was very classy. But we did have a focus with like some organs, some pianos, some keys, some bass, some drums, you know, maybe some other synth pad layers. I don't know if we had guitars in there. My brain is saying we might have, but either way, it's fine. It's just something I think I more or less automatically assume would happen in a format like this, because it was almost balladesque in the way that the different individual layers kind of stacked on top of each other as we went along at the start. I think that the church kind of organs kind of spoke of a little bit of sort of spirituality, maybe, having a little bit of sort of wholesomeness there, that kind of old school tone there, nice bit of brightness and softness in the mix. The piano melodies, when they weren't sort of being supported with the chord triads or the extensions in some of the key sections there, like the interlude, for example, were sticking with the vocalist's melodies in a way that was very kind of satisfying. You know, you didn't feel as if you were missing anything by way of it kind of going off on its own journey. Things were very tight, as if the music was trying to connect with the singer. And I think that the bass guitar or any sort of sub-resonances there, and it was a really nice sub-resonance, by the way, in some parts. It just had a great sort of like presence in the headphones. Really well mixed, by the way, but we'll get to that in a moment. I think that what we had going on with the bass was that it was predominantly following along with the root notes of the chord progressions, but it never really went too far and away from that. But that was because it was trying to be more of a foundation for the rest of the composition. The bass guitar was simply trying to be something that kind of gave it a bit of oomph in that low end, filled up an important part of the frequency spectrum, and it accomplished that well. And the drums as well, with the 16th note grooves on the hi-hat cymbals and drums and stuff like that, and in the chorus parts were well done. But they also, again, they came away sometimes to allow just for things to float, such as in the last sort of section of the track where it was a lot of the higher mid elements of the arrangement. I think the combination of these various elements, along with the complexity of some of the 7th extensions and the harmonies there, and just the overall sense of acceptance, I think, in there's a sense of acceptance within the motif there, as if we're accepting our own reality of who we are, our place in the universe, what has happened before us, and what's going on there. And I think it's something that a lot of people really would benefit from listening to, purely for the fact that it not only provides a really compelling story, but it also provides a really comforting and accepting environment to be able to think about that in. I think that the themes really matched the vocals well and the story, and I think they were very well connected, and I don't think it was a note out of place. I also just think, as a final note, the use of like the tape machines there was phenomenal, and I also really enjoyed the fact that we had the sort of cinematic kind of like movie projector going whoosh, starting up at the beginning and then finishing at the end. It was a nice little bit of extra kind of depth to the track that made it sound very mature. I think finally, the studio recording, mixing and mastering, I think that it was very satisfying to listen to the song because it was commercial grade in regards to the way it was recorded, mixed and mastered. The vocals were nice and present in the mix. If there were backing parts on the sides, they were nicely positioned in the stereo field, and now again they had different textures, different effects filtered on them to make it a bit more fuzzier or a little bit more kind of bright or a little bit different to the mains, so they sort of niched well together. And there was no difficulties understanding the words. There was a great clarity to it. And I think as well, just the drums sounded nice. And the drums sounded like a little bit boxy, but I think that's mostly because of the fact that they wanted a kind of more of a kind of misty kind of tone to the percussion potentially. The bass was well balanced there, it was not, but it didn't sound too alien to the rest. And the keys and the piano, while they were distinct from each other, they shared a similar place in the frequency spectrum, and they complemented each other very well. Things were nicely sort of balanced in the stereo, in the frequency spectrum. There were no resonant frequencies, and things were nicely sort of like placed in on the left and right sides of the stereo field. The levels of the mixing were good. There was sufficient dynamic range to this, not just changes in positions of stuff in the lower high ranges of the frequency spectrum, but also that the music did not sort of suffocate itself. I'm happy with the levels, differences and levels between the loud and quiet parts. I think it's good, well leveled in regards to limiting compression as well, because it was nice and loud without pumping. I mean, effectively, this is my review of this track from Booker Brooks. Apparently, this was set for release on July 14th. So if you're watching this and you did enjoy the track and you don't want to listen to it without me pausing it, then feel free to go listen to it via his various social medias and YouTube page. But stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.